Hello fans, Film Recaps here. Today we are going to cover a 2012 comedy, horror drama film called Dead Sushi. The movie begins with the narrator giving a brief narration of how sushi is something more than a dish. She explains that it's an art that takes years to master. Meanwhile, two people who seem to be father and daughter are making the sushi while the narrator goes on to make her explanation. The narrator explains how skilled her father is at sushi making. The next scene shows that Keiko is practicing some martial arts moves. According to her father, martial arts makes one extremely skilled at making sushi. They also undergo a kind of weird training where Keiko has to dodge knife movements that her father throws at her hand. She ultimately fails and stains the fish on the table with her blood. Keiko then tries to make sushi for her father to judge. As usual, her sushi gets rejected by her father. They undergo more extreme martial arts movements as the cast introductions are made. After the introductions, the father is seen talking down to his daughter, telling her how she was never cut out for the art of making sushi. Keiko recoils and tells her father how being a girl made him lose his confidence in her abilities to be a sushi master. Later on, Keiko runs away and ends up being offered a position at the inn. She gets bullied by her colleagues as she is new at the time. They pile up their serving table on hers, making it very heavy for her. Keiko spills all the food and the other two walk away with a laugh on their faces. The next scene shows a few people making their way into the inn. They're introduced to the inn and the employees by the innkeeper. One of the visitor's assistants assures Mr. Osaka, a visitor, about the award-winning sushi the inn makes. Keiko arrives late and her face is covered with noodles. The visitors have a laugh and the innkeeper chastises her for appearing that way. She apologizes deeply for her troubles and meets one of the visitors, Mr. Sawada, who helps her clean the noodles on her clothes. He explains to her how much better it is to try everything and go for one that works best for her. Just then, Mr. Sawada notices how smooth her hands are and gives compliments to her. He says further that her hands would make perfect sushi. The next scene shows two couples walking to a resort. The guy makes a complaint about the distance. Unknown to them, a creepy-looking man sits around and looks at them. They recoil in shock and find out he was eating sushi he found in the trash can. When asked, he just says he wants to eat his sushi in peace. Then the boy gets violent and kicks the old man's sushi away. The man gets annoyed and some creepy creature appears from his jacket. The duo ran for dear life as the creature gave them a hot pursuit. Unfortunately, the lady and her boyfriend lose their lives in the pursuit. By nightfall, the visitors are already hungry for the award-winning sushi the inn makes. However, the sushi chef, Chef Tsuchida, has another plan in mind. He plans to give his visitors ready-made sushi. The innkeeper's wife is shocked but quickly instructed not to say anything. The next morning, Keiko is seen running to serve the visitors as she's already late for work. The visitors talk immorally about the waitresses. One of them touches her inappropriately as she serves the other guests. Just then, the chef presents his sushi skills to the guests. Naturally, Keiko gets interested as he starts his show. The chef uses bluefin tuna and shrimp to make beautiful-looking sushi and amazes his visitors. Keiko notices his false techniques and immediately realizes that he's cheating. She also insinuates how annoyed her father would be if he sees this sushi chef. The next scene shows the visitors trying out the sushi stylishly, savoring the taste of the falsely made sushi. They seem happy towards the taste of the sushi, and the chef tells them to try out his egg sushi, but they reject it, and just then, Keiko marks down the work of the sushi chef. As she was about to be chastised, one of the visitors concurred with her and asked her to explain her accusation. Meanwhile, Mr. Sawada, hearing all the commotion, rushes to check the situation. He stops to check the cat sounds he keeps hearing outside. He then rushes to check who was on the other side of the door and gets taken down by a familiar old man. After much pressure, Keiko opens up on how Mr. Tsuchida's sushi was wrong. To the crowd's surprise, she explains all he did wrong in his process. She also explains how wrong the visitors ate their sushi and told them the egg sushi ought to be eaten. The chef runs mad and tries to finish Keiko off for disgracing him. Keiko defends herself through martial arts and knocks out the chef. The visitors all prepare to fight Keiko. She accepts the challenge and beats the living hell out of them. In the attacks, a visitor, Nosaka, breaks in to save Keiko. The leader threatens Nosaka that he should do anything to jeopardize their company's security. Just then, the homeless guy turns out to be a former senior employee in the pharmaceutical company. He reveals to them that he was given the horrible task to create real-life zombies. The project was successful and deadly, so, the director made him take the fall for the failed project. Before getting the chance to finish his story, the homeless man, Yamada, gets shot in the back and everyone goes back to their rooms. Then the homeless guy wakes up, and injects his squid with one of his serums and gives him the task of infecting other sea creatures. Just then, Keiko and one of the employees start fighting with another employee holding a knife. The duo have a rough fight and the old man's squid sushi comes to attack one of them. However, one of the ladies raises a knife and pushes the squid into another room. The squid infects other sushi fishes on the men's table, all of whom later end up taking the life of one of the men. The other man runs for his life as the other sushi meals come to life. Unfortunately, the lady fighting Keiko with a knife gets her tongue bitten by a rogue sushi ball. Afterward, Keiko is greeted by a tied-up Mr. Sawada. Keiko frees him and explains her theory of the flying sushi. Surprised, Mr. Sawada shuns her for making things up. He further explains his daunting story of how he, a former sushi master, stabbed his wife mistakenly after an argument they both had. After screaming over a set of knives he saw, Mr. Sawada reassures Keiko that she can be anything she wants. Just then, the innkeeper's son, riddled with guilt, wonders how the demise of the old man would be bad for the inn. When he notices that the body is gone, he recoils in shock and sees an old-looking silhouette standing in front of him. He runs away and meets the man who escaped from the flying sushi. The squid catches up to him and finishes him off. The innkeeper's son flees the scene immediately. The next scene shows Keiko and Mr. Sawada trying to open the door of the room they were trapped in. Keiko refuses to eliminate the egg sushi and instead uses it to open the door they've been trying so hard to open. They did this by using the acid the egg sushi spits out of its mouth. In a secret room, the visitors are seen making peace with the sushi chef. They also make the absurd request of using the bodies of the waitresses at the inn as platters for the sushi meals. The ladies recoil in shock, but the visitors threatened they would call the authorities if they didn't offer up their bodies. They immediately agree to this and start the show for the guests. Nosaka, the guest who supported Keiko previously, nods in disagreement over this treatment of the ladies. Just then, Keiko was stopped on her way to warn everyone about the flying sushi by the guy who allegedly eliminated the octopus. Turned out the squid was pulling his face apart. He says he has to warn his boss about the impending calamity they all had in the inn. Meanwhile, the sushi party is still ongoing in secret as the ladies' upper bodies were already covered in sushi. The men were enjoying the pieces of sushi when all of a sudden Nosaka reminded them how pointless that was. Just then, one of the ladies feels a bite on her neck from one of the sushi. Surprised, then the whole room stared at the piece as it slowly moved on her body. Keiko leaves him and proceeds to warn the others. Just then, the piece of sashimi on the waitresses' bodies started having their fun, biting all parts of their bodies and taking their lives in the process. The visitors and the head chef all flee the room without making any attempts to save the crying ladies. Just then Mr. Sawada is seen running from a horde of sushi assassins and saved by a knife. Keiko gets saved by her egg sushi and makes her way to save everyone in the pink secret room. In the hubbub, Chef Tsuchida loses his life to the flying sushi army while the innkeeper's wife makes it out alive with one sashimi zombie on her body. The boss forces Nosaka to abandon the rest of the crew and flee the inn entirely, leaving Keiko to die by the hands of the sushi assassins. While making her way to an exit, the keeper's wife stops in the way after noticing something in her body and making her uncomfortable. She mentions Tsuchida's name and her husband immediately finds out she was cheating on him with the chef. He nearly stabs her but is stopped by Mr. Sawada, who reminds them of their vows. They both have a sorrowful moment and curtains roll up over their scene. The next scene shows the director, Nosaka, and the old man having a talk about how he was framed and taken to prison for a crime they all committed together. Frustrated, the old man eats up one of his own zombie creations and starts to transform. In his transformation, Nosaka handcuffs the unsuspecting director to a statue and runs away, leaving the director to die. The tuna-transformed Yamada accidentally frees the director of his chains due to his bad vision. The director runs away and makes his way to a hot tub. He hides in the water and sees a young woman coming out of the bathroom. In an attempt to escape, Keiko and some others see two sushi rolls procreating. Just as Keiko was about to give up, her egg sushi encouraged her not to give up and she agreed. She and Mr. Sawada agree to make sure they get out alive and fine. Just then, sushi-controlled human zombies started pouring out of the inn. The team breaks free and makes a run for Mr. Sawada's farm. They are pursued by a swarm of sushi zombies. One of them is lost on the way and the rest progress. One of the escapees tries to be a hero and ends up getting eliminated by a fire-spitting sushi zombie. The rest eventually make it to the farm when Keiko meets Nosaka at the farm. Surprised by how calm he is, eating his ramen, Keiko asks him questions. Nosaka answers them casually like nothing's wrong and surprises Keiko. Just then, the zombies try to enter the farmhouse but are stopped by the fortress. The innkeeper's wife turns into a zombie and runs outside. Unable to take the pain, the husband allows his wife to bite him and be turned into a zombie. Mr. Sawada, unfortunately, gets bitten by the sushi and finds out high sound waves destroy the sushi zombies. The army breaks in and faces the ninja duo, Keiko and Mr. Sawada, who stylishly defeats the zombie army using their own skills, screams, and some kitchen utensils. most of which were knives. Their tuna king shows up and challenges Keiko to a deadly fight. After an intense battle between them, the tuna king vomits up his sushi roll battleship to fight Keiko. Scared, Keiko's egg sushi friend sacrifices herself to destroy the battleship. Nosaka tranquilizes the tuna king and celebrates his win. Just then, the tuna king told him not to be too quick to do that. Nosaka feels his cheeks swelling and dies. The tuna king's laughter is cut short when Keiko reprimands him for being a jerk. They both continue their fight. Meanwhile, the egg sushi is seen still fighting the battleship, getting destroyed by the ship's explosive power, and Mr. Sawada finally headbutts and bites the rogue squid. Due to its strong will, the egg sushi tricks the battleship into tying up its own master with its chains. Keiko sees this as an opportunity to finish off the tuna king and takes it. She blows the tuna king into smithereens and saves the day. However, her friend, the egg sushi, lost his life after the fight. With things back to normal, Keiko tries Mr. Sawada's sushi and appreciates the deliciousness of the fish in the sushi. They both have a good laugh after promising each other to never give up on their dreams. Keiko returns home and apologizes to her father for running away from home. To her greatest surprise, her father welcomes her with open arms and accepts her back as his student. Just then, a sushi roll attacks her father. Thankfully, Keiko stops it in time, removes the nerves, and serves it up as an order to the viewers.